What's going on, everybody? This is Harris from Gloomdale, and thanks a lot for tuning into this week's weekly outlook video. I'm just going to be going over a few pairs as usual, but the format of this is going to be slightly different as I'm going to introduce a document that I share in the group every single week that we go over our economic events as well as some notable data that we should be aware of that's going on fundamentally. But before we go into that, I want to take a moment and just explain to you guys, what's been going on with the group. Firstly, it looks like we're hitting about 92 subscribers, getting very close to 100, which is great. And I thank you all so much for your support and for taking advantage of this free resource that's available to everybody. We are looking at bringing back live trading in the mornings, so that's going to be happening. Once again, it's just there's a lot of systematic errors that we've been dealing with in that process, as well as setting up a back-end environment for you guys to access that. But it might informally come back where we're going to be taking live trades in the morning again. So anyways, let's not waste any time. Let's get into this. And I just wanted to say real quick as well, while I'm on the topic, is that just trading in general for me in the last month or so has been very personal. I've been focused a lot more on my own gains, and that's why you may have noticed a few changes in terms of the things that you're seeing in the group. Primarily, I am focused on 1 to 2 pairs, per day, and that's basically all that I'm looking at. And the reason behind that is because it's not only just easier to follow 1 or 2 pairs, but there's opportunities, on a singular pair almost every single day. And the days when there's not, you can take a look at something else. And if the market in general is just moving a little choppier, or just overall you're not seeing anything on the pairs that you trade normally, then chances are that it's just not the right day to trade. And to be able to identify days like that is very key to your development, because look, at the end of the day, the way you need to treat your trading account, the way you need to treat the way that you take trades is not in the sense that, hey, I'm trying to make as much money as possible during this day or during this week, but rather I am looking for the best opportunity to take where I can make money, right? If there is an opportunity every single day, and believe me, there are weeks where it's like that, but if it was like that all the time, this would start getting really, really easy. And sometimes it's that patience factor that will take you to the next level, to be able to say, hey, I don't know what's going on today in the markets, so I think I'm gonna take a break and come back tomorrow, right? And maybe tomorrow, when there's an opportunity, and I'm more confident in that idea that I'm taking, that is more meaningful and more impactful to you, versus trying to do something that you're not familiar with, right? So that's just my little tip for everybody, is that if you're not focused on this already, focus on good environments and bad environments of the market, and understand when you should be physically looking for a trade, or opening your mind up to one at least. All right, so let's get into this this week, guys. Don't want to waste any more time here. Here is the file that's shared with you guys in the group, so we're just going to go over it really quickly. On Monday, June 8th, we have some medium impact news on the Australian dollar, New Zealand dollar. They have their business confidence report, where they're basically going to talk about how business is running, as well as talk a little bit about the impact of COVID. So that's going to be important for people that are looking at any of the Australian dollar, New Zealand dollar pairs. On Tuesday, we mainly have low impact news, so it not too much to worry about that day. And overall, if you just look at this week, there's not too much going on anyways, and it's just you have to be aware of these and when they're happening, because it could impact your trade. You could be in a position, and the volatility from some of these news events could take you the other way. So it's just something to be aware of throughout the week, and understand the numbers that are coming out associated with these events, because they are going to, in the long term, impact the currency pair. On Wednesday, we have USD CPI and the interest rates news happening around 2 p.m. and CPI is 8:30 in the morning. Okay, so that's going to impact us here because we trade during that time. That's the New York session, so we trade during that time. So we want to, is that something we might want to wait for before entering a trade? Right, we might want to see the impact of that, or we're going to look to enter and close a position prior to that. Thursday, June 11th, we have some PPI and unemployment as a medium impact. So this is not for the whole month. I believe it's for the week. So that's why the impact of it isn't as strong, because the data is very short term. And then Friday, we have some GBP news on GDP at 2 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, just around London session. And then some preliminary USD news around 10 a.m. Okay, so the other thing is some of the events that are happening. So we know that the US-China tensions are still pretty complicated. There's a situation with Hong Kong and COVID as well. And now, there's a lot of stuff related to Chinese companies and US basically sanctioning it. So that's something that we have to kind of monitor for a little bit, because, these two markets economically are really big, and they have an impact overall on many things that we do in the Forex market. So their relationship means a lot, and so that's something we have to monitor and see how that's going and what kind of conclusions they come to as time goes on. Last week we saw that employment report showed strong rebound and improvement. We weren't expecting numbers like that, and the numbers were absolutely fantastic. And Trump went ahead to actually showcase and flex on Twitter in terms of how good the results were. So that's going to be good for the US dollar, because it shows improvement even during times like this. Any sort of economic improvement is good for that country or that currency pair. So of course, during these tensions between China, as well as what we saw with gold getting slammed last week because of the employment reports during NFP, gold is going to be something we're going to monitor as usual, because we like to keep up with what's going on with gold. Gold is nothing to ignore, and it's just something that we should be monitoring in terms of direction and momentum, and that also will give you an idea on in terms of correlations in other pairs. So as we know, euro, the European economy is planning and has planned to they've set up like a stimulus package. I forget for how much, but they're still pumping that into the economy. So that's going to have an impact for a little bit in terms of its momentum. We're most likely going to continue seeing the euro in a bullish momentum. Brexit tensions, of course, as we know, they were back on the table, and we're still waiting for them to see sort of how they respond to that in terms of their deadline. When it comes to oil, the OPEC, they actually agreed to extend oil output cuts by another month, because they're still unsure, and they're still analyzing demand and that kind of stuff. So that's kind of what's happening in the oil market. But though we do know that oil is more than likely going to bounce back into where it was before, and that's kind of the long term of for oil. But we just kind of have to wait and see until we're ready to make a move on that. And of course, last but not least, guys, there is still the fear of a second wave of coronavirus, as countries are attempting at reopening their economy. A lot of people here, even here in Canada, they're trying to figure out ways to reopen the economy. But of course, there's so many different precautions they have to take to ensure that there is not that there isn't a second wave, but what they can do if there is one. All right, guys, so that's the economic events and notable data. Let's move over to the charts. As you guys know, my favorite pair, GBP, JPY. We're just going to take a look at that real quickly. I have some markups on here already, but I'm just going to review it with you. So really quickly, we have a very strong monthly resistance, which we seem to be heading towards at around, I would say, 142, 143. And then even, about 144 is actually where the stronger resistance occurs. So we're monitoring price as it breaks above this area here, rejecting this area here pretty heavily, and now it continues to move up. So we're seeing a push up, and I would like to see it approach 142 or 143. Okay, so that's kind of what we're looking at. on the monthly level. When we break it down to the weekly, we're kind of seeing that similar momentum going towards that 143 level. Now, one thing to obviously acknowledge is that there is, of course, these areas here that are not to be ignored. So at any point, we could see some sort of pullback on here because we are in a very this area right here is a very important resistance area on all levels. So it's just something that you can't ignore and that you should be wary about. Daily still looking very, very bullish. At the daily last week closed slightly above the resistance here to the left. So I would ideally like to see GBP continue, but then when we head over to the 4-hour, we start to see that last week we started trying to push down after rejecting about the 139.8 area, 139.8 area we rejected, and now we're heading down. So chances of this pulling back to say about this level or this level become higher, and so that's kind of what we're going to be looking at the week ahead, in my opinion. And then I have my 30-minute zones marked up as we continue to see that bearish move happening at the moment. But I think for us, it's going to be more of a confirm when it breaks this 4-hour low and enters this zone, that we'd be more interested in potentially taking sales to about here. Okay, USD JPY, very similar in terms of, last week we saw a lot of bullish momentum with US dollar because of the employment reports on Friday. But it's interesting because we have a very strong resistance here at 109.5, and then the last candle broke, made a new high above these, and then it closed just about at that resistance level. So we're at resistance on UJ, and I think that because we're at resistance on UJ on the smaller sort of time frames, I think overall we're headed up maybe towards 110, but before we get to 110, I wouldn't be surprised to see a little bit of a pullback before we head up, right? And the pullback most likely is going to happen towards this area here, 109.400, which is a previous support level. So and we're seeing now, as last week we closed a bearish candle below the low of the previous bullish candle. So we are going to most likely see a pullback on UJ, and that's kind of like heading into the week is something we want to see. How it reacts to this level is how far it wants to go. But keep in mind, overall we are bullish. Fundamentally we are bullish, so we want to see very strong confirms before we're ready to sell, and I think that we are about just at that level where we can now continue to sell to about 109.4 and then monitor price from that point. Okay, so just keep that into mind. The last pair I'm going to go over here is USD CAD for the week, and USD CAD, when you look at it on the higher time frames, it is very, very bearish. We hit a strong resistance level here. As you can see, it respected a previous resistance level at about it just didn't want to get into the 1.5 area, right? So we can see a strong rejection at 1.45, I would say, and now we're headed down. So because of this rejection and then us seeing a lot of bearish momentum in the previous months, chances are now we're kind of in this area of consolidation, right? So when you go into the smaller time frames, it'll give you a better idea in terms of where it's headed. And in my opinion, with at the moment, oil being the way it is, and then the US dollar being the way it is, I think that we're just going to continue to see a push of this momentum to the downside, though I wouldn't be looking for sells at any point now, because you don't want to sell at a low, right? So if you can get some sort of pullback to about this area here, and then start to see price reject that area, then that's maybe something that you'd want to get into, maybe to the end of this here. But it just depends on what momentum it opens with, and how far it's going to go down further. I mean, just by the looks of it, it's going down. It's really pushing towards this area here, but we have a very strong 1 hour, 4 hour support level here at 1.34. So I think like for further sells, you want to see a break of that level, like a clean break of 1.34. If you don't see a clean break of 1.34, then consider this area to potentially then be respected, and then that's where we're going to see a pullback to about 1.35, and that's kind of what we'll monitor. But very bearish right now. Any opportunities on this pair should be sells, and yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. So I went over GBP JPY, went over USD JPY and USD CAD, which are the three pairs that I'm going to be looking at this week. There's a lot of different pairs. There's a lot of great pairs out there. Don't get me wrong. These are just the ones that I'm most familiar with and the ones that, you know, a lot of people in the group trade. If you're looking for analysis on a weekly basis for a particular pair that you trade and you want me to focus on, if you literally just reach out to me on my Telegram through DMs at FX Fanatic, I will include you in my next weekly outlook video, because that is, you took the effort to come to me and tell me that it's something you want to see. I have no problem going over that as an extra pair. So just reach out to me, guys, and that's something that we can do for you. But that's basically it, guys. You know, keep up with the fundamental stuff that we've kind of given to you guys, and we made that document there to make it a little bit easier for you to understand and keep things simple. And that's kind of what we're doing on a weekly basis. Remember, you know, stay patient and really identify the good trading opportunities. My advice to everybody has always been not to trade on a Sunday, because Sundays, you know, it's the first day of the market open. A lot of orders haven't even been put in yet, and people are just, you know, just kind of like sitting at their table, just starting off their day kind of thing. And a lot of the movement in the market isn't really controlled at an institutional level. So you might see a lot of fake outs and that kind of stuff on Sundays. And that's why I don't really like trading on Sundays. I like the market to kind of get a feel for what it wants to do during the week. And Monday morning is usually when I start looking at trades. And I think that if you just start implementing these small things into your trading plan, it'll make a big difference, because it has for me. And I think that it could impact you as well. Now, if what you've been doing and for you, like entries on Sundays work somehow, continue doing that. Continue to do what works for you. Don't switch things up unless you feel that process of refinement will significantly improve your results, right? And that's something for you to monitor on your own. So yeah, guys, Monday morning I will start posting charts for these three pairs as we continue to monitor them throughout the week, and just kind of let you guys know sort of in terms of direction, where we're going, what we're doing. And I will give you guys more updates on the live trading. Again, thanks a lot for all the support. Really appreciate it. Let's have a killer week, guys. Stay focused. Stay really focused. Remember, when you're trading, there shouldn't be any distractions, right? You shouldn't be sick. You shouldn't have any stress about anything. Very clear-minded, so that the decisions you make, your entries, exits, that kind of stuff is very rational and very logical. Okay, keep things easy for yourself, in the sense that, you know, when you see a market like this, right, like we don't know what the heck is going on here when it's in this range, so you probably don't want to trade that, right? And that's just kind of like things that you need to learn to identify, and I talked a little bit about that in the beginning. But anyways, guys, done with this video. Appreciate the support once again. Have a fantastic week.